Hi guys, it's Celine. Friday the 5th of March 2021. Let me just grab my second cup of joe here. I will try to sit in such a way that I'm not constantly moving in this bar of shade here. Um, I I just want to get back out there, you know. It's been a really weird set of a couple of weeks where I have been doing the third stage of my Tummo meditation practice, energy work practice, to the extent that I managed that. What happened, what I think is most relevant to that story at the moment, is that I got my period about 5 days earlier than normal, than I was expecting it. I was expecting it to be around now, more or less, and it started off on Monday already. However, it took a very long time to really get going. So what I'm thinking is that Tummo III, which is in the third, happens when you engage the third Dantian in the head, in the whole Tummo process, that actually some kind of a switch was flipped, and that this actually caused my period to come way quicker than I was expecting it. There are other points in other areas where I feel like things are changing due to this new level of tumor energy. Normally, I would say it just feels really pleasant. I'm not in a, disturbed in any way. On the contrary, except for the hormonal things, which are, just a bit less than perfect. What with not getting really enough exercise in lockdown situations and so on and so forth. Been having quite a bit of sunshine, as you can see. Very nice weather. It's fairly cool outside. It's only about +8 degrees or so. I've been sitting outside also quite a bit, but I'm sitting on my butt too much. I did a bit of hoovering just now, and I just don't have. The funny thing is, I've got a ton of energy, but it's not available. So there's another thing about this whole Tummo process that's been bugging me recently, where I feel like I have a lot of energy. I've got the energy stored inside me. I can feel it, but I cannot really use it yet because I'm not in balance. So that's, I pulled a few cards just now from my Mystic Masters Tarot, and I basically did a spread that I picked up from Lisa at Lisa Perpez's, where you read, the first card gives you the energy of the day, of the moment, or the situation that you're thinking about. I got the Hanged Man for that. Absolutely. I mean, I've been feeling like this a couple of times already, where it's just like everything is weird and different somehow, and I can't really make out why or how even. And it's not uncomfortable and it's not unpleasant, and I just don't seem to get anything done other than really short term, short perspective, little bits of things, like that. The second card is your obstacle, and I got temperance for that. So I'm used to reading, positive cards in negative questions as well, in negative positions, question positions or spread positions. So I could immediately see how temperance is always a really, it's a card that I like very much. Everybody likes temperance, I think, for the message of, the balancing of the act also of being a sovereign person in your life, and, making sure that there's enough of this and not too much of that as well, going on, stuff like that. In this case, it would mean I'm holding myself back through overthinking, which is what I'm associating with temperance in a more negative connotation here. And somehow the mixture isn't completely right and it's an obstacle instead of a remedy. And the remedy, the third position in my card set here, is the Page of Coins, and it would tell me to, realize that certainly what with Tummo III, I am, again, as with Tummo II, and I tended to almost forget about that. Now that I'm talking about it, I remind myself of this. Tummo, secondary Tummo, was more complicated, but more obvious. It was more obviously painful, at least for a little while. So going through that, it was a bit more obvious what was going on. In my head area, other than an occasional twinge that is too small to call a headache, really, even though they can be persistent at times, it's just a day or so. I haven't had any negative results. What I do notice with Tummo in general is that once the energy, the Kundalini, the Shakti energy has found that new path, once you have guided it along that path that you want to use, it will do it. It will keep doing it by itself, also when you are watching television or reading or all the time, really. So that is one of the main reasons why I am in a bit of a state of flux, I suppose, because things are changing, and you might even say my brain chemistry is being changed slowly all the time through Tummo III, even though I do only focus and meditate in this manner little bits at a time, because also hormones, and I just don't get around to doing anything more, Apparently, whenever there's a new level of Tummo, a new Dantian being activated in the Tummo fashion, there's a detoxing process immediately. I noticed a lot of tonsil activity again. That's all gone now. And then what with, my hormonal business kicking in, it's just a total cleanse again. And I suppose that even though I've been eating really well, I've been doing my fruit and extra paying attention to my fruit and veg and, getting my proteins and everything, making sure that I supply, what I need to keep this show on the road to the extent that I can. I am still in a state where you basically feel like you're waiting for something and you just have to sit it out. It's like, yeah, and it's not bad necessarily. I'm not complaining. Only I'm used to being slightly more active and more engaged and more interested in things, and it'll all come back to me. So if you have never heard me talk about Tummo before, I will maybe go into that a bit more, because this is a witchy check-in with details, okay? That's what it's going to be. So I'm going to sit here and talk to you, if you let me. And I think explaining more about the whole Tummo thing as I experience it now is one of the more interesting things I could be, talking about to you, in the sense that hardly anybody, I think nobody really, shares their intel or their experiences in this field at all, and certainly not in this manner. So I've been practicing basic Tummo, which I would tend to call primary Tummo, which is probably what they mean when they describe Tummo, to the extent that I've been able to find any descriptions on the internet. It's all more or less the same. It is a practice that they do in Tibet. I think it's more widespread in Tibet than anywhere else in the Indian subcontinent in this way. It is a very effective and beautiful way of using Kundalini Shakti energy. I use those words interchangeably, more or less, for yourself to become more confident, to become freer from things that tend to, be oppressive in your life, and so on and so forth. I'm going to pull you towards me a bit, like that, so I don't sit in the remote distance there like a talking person. It is I so far I'm enjoying every bit of it. There have been a couple of moments where it was a bit more intense or a bit more tricky, and I had to figure out what I wanted to do with it. But it is the great advantage of the Tummo practice itself is that it is a the Dantian, which is a Chinese concept that I've not found anywhere else, provide you with I suppose, a mechanism that gives a new shape to your Shakti energy. It transforms your Shakti energy into something that is actually a bit more manageable than Shakti as it comes up into your root chakra by itself. And that is especially as you continue onward. What I've been doing is I've been, over the whole of 2020, I've been practicing primary Tummo, which is Shakti entering into the first Dantian, which is in the lower belly area. You can look up Dantians on the internet and find information if you're interested in this in more detail. You want to know more details about this. I believe that's the function of the Dantians is to transform your Shakti energy for you and make it usable, make it applicable. There are 3 Dantians in the body. That one in your lower chest area, and one inside in the middle of your skull, more or less. They all 3 have a different function. And as I was talking to my friend about this and thinking about these things, I was interested to try to apply the sort of the result from the primary, what's called Tummo, really, which is only first level, so first level Dantian work, to see what would happen if I got that level of energy to the second Dantian, have it go through its transformation in there, see what happens in this area, as a consequence of that, and then take that energy, if I could, if I would manage, all the way to number 3, and so on and so forth. So really like a process going from, like when, products are made out of a base, out of a basis, some kind of an ingredient of some sort. The Shakti is your basic ingredient, and you end up with a result that is actually very much more refined and specific, and it can be used in all sorts of different ways, is what I think now. So I had that idea, and then I went on ahead to try and get that done. Having had, I think, when was it that I started on secondary Tummo? Not that long ago, actually, maybe November or something. So all of 2020 minus the last month and a bit, maybe, I spent doing Tummo 1 only. So only underbelly Tummo, which is what people tend to know about. If you know about this type of thing, it will be, which is also why it is widely known in Tibet and rather unknown anywhere else, because it is used, Tummo 1 in that stage, in that level, is used to generate body heat, more body heat. And there's extraordinary stories about that, and there's stories about monks doing this and getting really good at this, and in most of the time it's not recorded. They're not allowed to, to record this stuff anywhere. So, but people tend to, there's even a couple of people who promote a part of this type of energy work where the focus is actually all on the breath and a couple of other similar exercises, and they call this Tummo. Those people are Westerners, so I'm not into that. I was also not really particularly interested in, when I got going with this stuff, in doing this for the body heat only. I was interested in getting a relationship and a real connection with my own Shakti energy, my own Kundalini energy. I want to know what that's about. I resented, it's a big word, but more or less minded the fact that people present Kundalini and Shakti energy as something less spiritual often, or as something really scary that you should be really careful of, and you should basically think that you have to walk on eggshells and be, I didn't feel like that was right. I felt that you should be able to figure out how to live in your own body as a person, you with whoever you are, with all your trappings and trimmings in your body. You automatically have your own Shakti energy available to you. Why should this be a problem? Why in the world should this be a problem? So, yeah. So, I was never in it really for the body heat part of the experience, even though I have noticed as a result of the Tummo 1 level that I do. And what you get is, if you practice Tummo 1, you I suppose you automatically get a slightly higher body temperature in a way that's comfortable. It's not feverish. It is not. The Dantian takes care of it all. In the Dantian, you get an interaction between the raw Shakti energy and all this. In each and every one of the Dantians, that same process happens. So there's a constant interaction. It's like, I don't know, like a chariot cart, I suppose, where the horses are the Shakti, really. And you just have to, but you yourself are in this process. You're mainly a witness, and you just have to be there. Also, you have to look out for yourself and make sure you eat well and you get enough sleep and all that simple stuff. We all know those things, don't we? So there's no real reason to if you don't get enough sleep, you're going to get in trouble. But it's not the Shakti's fault, and it's not the fault of your meditation. It'll just put it into clearer perspective. Sorry for the airplane noises, that's just bound to happen. So in the secondary Tummo, I went ahead in December, early December, to find a way, and it turns out that the channel that I tend to use is a bit less obvious, where each time the Dantian sits at the level that you are looking at. So this one now, right? It's like a ball that you might think of as being in two halves, like that, with a sort of a seam in the middle. And my path is not the middle channel, because that's a Shakti highway and everything will just go really fast up and down. And that's the channel that most people will promote using, but you will have very little, you won't be able to slow it down enough to see what's going on inside you. So that's not what I wanted. I have chosen a path that's much closer to the spine. So if this is your middle channel, this is your spine, then just about I don't know, half an inch or so forward from your spine, there's another path that you might use that ends at each Dantian. Each of those shallow bowls like that sit connected to this spine path, if you like. And it takes some time. You have to find the way for the Kundalini, the Tummo by then energy, no longer Kundalini, no longer Shakti, but Tummo energy to become familiar with that pathway into the next level dantian that you're working on. So I did this over the past week or so. Last week I did a video where I did a sort of a check-in similar to this one, and I hadn't really figured out the third level access point yet, and by now I have. And the moment I went ahead and did this, in this manner, I got all this hormonal stuff going on and all this detoxing stuff going on. So obviously my lymph glands, which there's a lot of them in your head, suddenly they had another job to do, and it was like everything got put on hold, more or less. But I remember very clearly that the access point for the third dantian is actually not in the crown chakra and not at the back of the head anywhere. It is actually, if you look at the skull from the side, like this in profile, it would be a point that is more or less at the level of the what also is called the alta major chakra, at the top of the neck, really at the base of the skull, and then just 2 fingers up from there, but going inside. So the dantian doesn't reach apparently as far out, at least initially, to the outside of the scully. It's the access point that I want, that I need for my Tummo III this time action. I have to look a bit more inside my skull, and then I find the exact way, and immediately after that all this detoxing started happening. So I went like, okay, and I've been through the same kind of a detoxing story with the second level Tummo as well, and especially around here when I was, after a while, getting my secondary Tummo level up to here where the thymus gland is, it got, tonsils galore. So, but all that's really, it's all temporary, really, and the detoxing is useful, and I'm actually really glad that once all this is done, I should eventually get to a state where my tonsils do not have to do this work the whole time. Wouldn't that be nice? So, yeah. It's actual Kundalini energy that you're getting in there. So it's not a visualization. It is not an image. It is not something that you do to get peace of mind and a balanced state and detachment and all those good things, I'm a great fan of detachment. Or at least I used to be, always. Not so much now. Because Shakti energy is way too powerful for all this to... going to pause for 1 second. Yeah, that should be better. This way I don't have this, each time I move an inch, I don't have this bar of shadow coming across my face the whole time. That's bugging me. I don't know if it's bugging you. It's bugging me anyway. So, yeah. I was saying that incorporating the Shakti energy into your life doesn't necessarily mean getting a whole lot of peace of mind, a different attitude towards things. Yes, to that, but in a whole different ball game than what we tend to learn as being the right way to do things. I've always been a bit of a feisty pant myself, so I have a lot of temper, issues. Talk about temperance, yes, in all possible ways. I have a lot of old repressed emotions and anxieties, and that's why I'm here. That's why I do all this stuff, because I don't want to be miserable anymore. I want to have the miserable be out of my life, preferably permanently. I don't do miserable really well. So all this, that's my sort of a psychological repertoire of reasons why I do this. I want to have access to energy that I think is mine anyway. I want to be able to see what I can do, see what I can become if I use this energy. If I What's going to happen in the coming years as I progress with this, I have no clue. So far, recently, I think that I have been working on my third level Tummo for most of February, really, even though this actual access to the Dantian inside the skull that I was describing 5 minutes ago only happened just a week ago or so for the first time. And as I said, once the pattern has been found, once the pathway has been found, the Shakti, the Tummo energy, will continue using that path in the new manner all the time. Also, when you're doing completely different things, you do not have to go to continually work on this. As long as once you've sort of accessed this pathway, it will continue to use that pathway. So that's really cool. I think it's very energy effective, very cost effective. You just have to, get the exact location for yourself to get going. And once it's got going, it goes. It does itself. And that I have been able to feel over all of the past week, really, since, opening this third Dantian access point, really. There aren't any. I've talked about, for the first Dantian in the underbelly, I've talked about checkpoints. This is if you really want to try this out for yourself. I, again, never advise anybody. I do not tell you to do this. I don't think it is really my place to tell the internet to go ahead and do this. If you feel called again and again back to this material, there is a reason for that, and you should probably, and you may already have, been investigating this stuff for yourself, and you can go further. And I think that what I advocate, or what I'm trying to tell you about, is my own personal experience with this whole adventure, what it feels like, as much as I can. I'm trying to, put all that into words. Also the, clumsy bits and the scratching your head bits and the phases where nothing's much happening or whatever, all that gets more or less gets presented to you. I stick everything in my Tummo playlist on my channel for whoever really wants this, as a sort of a one-woman database, I suppose, of what has happened to me with this process. And that's all there's to it. And if it inspires people to go ahead and do this, I think we are all very, 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 very much used to a world where I should be selling this to you. I should be, if I think it's good for me, then it should be the same for everybody. So you should get on my, what's the word? Gravy train. No? Bandwagon. That one. And I think it's, and nobody can tell you if and when this is supposed to happen. What I am telling you about is the how, and then what, So I'm describing quite a bit of the energy pathways and the stuff in this person you see here, in as much detail as I can muster, on and off in bits and episodes. And recently, It's been witchy check-in combined with Tummo update mostly, because I think it's the most consistently meaningful part of what I have to talk about at the moment. Otherwise, I don't really have a lot of adventures. It's early March. I'm glad of every ray of sunshine I get. I have a new book about tarot that I will show you in a bit. I have cards that I'm working on that are a lot of fun to me, and that's a whole different story. It does seem to me to be connected. For me, all this stuff is connected to each other. The cards business, the tarot, the astrology even, is all connected to. So here is where I sort of leave the Tummo behind for a bit again, because I think I told you everything that I have to report on that as it is at the moment. I feel really good. I can sense that there is more body heat in a way, more vibrancy inside here. But it's a slow process, and there's organs, my poor old eyes, and my ears and my all the stuff in here. It needs time to get used to this new vibration, this new energy, and we will it's fine. So to that extent, another thing that I've been doing, there's another airplane coming over. What I was going to talk about anyway is I finally got around to doing an astrological job that I had sort of reminded myself of wanting to know, wanting to do, which I thought was really useful. I researched my parents' planetary positions and their meanings, all of them, all together, I went ahead and did a horoscope analysis for my parents, finally, mainly from a website that's called alwaysastrology.com. It's one word, Always Astrology. And they provide, some of it looks a bit vintagey in a way. I think some of the intel is it's been on the net. The sites have been active for maybe a decade or more. I don't know. It looks a bit vintagey to me, at least. But I found it really useful to be able to finally put the dots on the I's as to my parents' quirks and characteristics in this way. And let me grab the journal. Hang on. Yeah, so I also took the pulley off because that was just getting way too hot in there. Yeah, so I made this is my type of journal that I use. I tend to glue some type of a pretty picture on the front, also because the fronts and the backs look really similar otherwise, and having this on the front side makes me able to just go to, this is the side of the book that I want. I've completed this one, and this is volume 27 actually, so I'm going to start a new journal very soon. It's got all sorts of spots and whatever on it, because this is what gets lugged around the country always. So I looked up, basically what I did is I looked up the whole lot of them. Sun in Aries or Taurus, Moon in Cancer, Moon in Leo, Black Moon in Cancer, North Node in Aquarius, Mercury in Aries, the whole lot of them, everything, one by one on this website. And I sort of wrote out for myself the details that struck me as pertinent, in particular to my mother, but also having my dad in the back of my head as much as possible, because my parents did have nearly the same date of birth. There was just 1.5 days between them. So that's one really weird aspect to this whole story. of mine is that I grew up with parents who had huge relational problems and divorced. That they divorced also when I came into the picture after a couple of years. The situation sort of became unlivable for certainly for my mother, and they split up. So I had to live with the consequences of that, and with how my mother went about her life, and so on and so forth. And I've always since I started working on astrology, I've known that they had so both of them, right, they had really similar horoscopes apart from the ascendant and house cusp positions. For the rest of it, there was a whole lot in that chart that is actually the same. So the same Mercury position, the same Venus position, the same Jupiter position. It's really funny and really weird. My parents could have been twins in this to this extent, except normally you'd get less, even less difference between them. My mother's moon was in Leo. I'm a Leo myself. My dad's moon, him being born a day and a half before her, was in Cancer. So but other than that, there's a whole lot of stuff that's and learning and reading about moon in Cancer or moon in Leo sort of allows me to see somebody else say it, that what the difference really was between what my dad used to think, what my mum used to think, also especially with respect to me, to what I should be doing in life, and so on and so forth. Their expectations of me, their expectations of themselves, of other people, and so on and so forth. And especially, I suppose, how the things that they went through in their difficult lives, both of them, how they affected them in ways that were slightly similar, and at some points they affected them really differently. So, but the basic thing that I've always known, that I've known for a very long time, is that they had the Sun, Mars, and Uranus conjunct in very close together at the end of the sign of Aries and the beginning of Taurus. And I tended to always just sort of hang all the interpretational difficulties that I've had with those two people on that, because it creates a certain, this kind of a planetary position, planetary stellium as it's called, three-way conjunction, really. It creates a very, very particular type of person. And I myself, I have all sorts of conjunctions in my chart, but not this type. Not my Uranus is conjunct with Pluto in Virgo, as a whole generation of people has that, But with the Sun and Uranus and Mars together like this, that's a whole deal. One thing I'd never really realized is that in this same exact point in the chart, it means that they have Mars in Aries. In case you're wondering what you mean by Mars in Aries, we've just been through a whole year of Mars in Aries. Yeah. So it's very useful. This has been quite useful, and I will have to go over it again to redigest it. I also looked at the retrogrades, because I've been doing quite a bit of thinking. They have different retrogrades from me, and retrograde planets, I should say. It's for them it is Jupiter and Neptune that's retrograde, but Mercury, who goes retrograde most often, and that's something you find in a lot of people's charts. You will find, if you have 10 people, there will be, I don't know, half of them maybe, depending, who will have a Mercury retrograde in their chart. That's very common, and I'm one of them. My husband's one of them, and I've recently been thinking about this whole Mercury retrograde thing as it explains to me so much more of how it is and why it is that I take endless lengths of time discussing for myself or with you guys or with my husband things, endlessly going over the same subject because I want to completely digest it. I only go, I'm constantly retrograding myself mentally, going back over things. Somebody who doesn't have a Mercury retrograde in their chart, and I think this is something important enough to shout it out into the internet there, will be eternally impatient with somebody who does what I do. My dad, my mum, not only did they have Mercury direct in Aries, yes, also my sun, my solar position in my chart, is sitting very close to their south node. The combination of these things, the fact that my sun, Leo, whether I like it or not, expresses a quality that is very much Leo, plus the fact that I have a Mercury retrograde, it accounts to me, this is like a little sum of things, it sort of shows me very clearly that my parents were very impatient with me. They really thought that they were smarter than I am, both of them. My mother slightly less because her moon was in Leo, like I said earlier, and she wasn't. She was a Taurus. She was the Taurus half of the set. My dad has this, aspect about him where he tends to think he's more brilliant than anybody else anyway, which is what they told him all his life. So if your dad tells you that, if your dad behaves in a way that's going to, that's, of course, that's what's going to happen. But I find that what with all the Tummo practice, this is what it comes to in my case. All this Tummo, all this new Tummo energy gives me perspectives that can be occasionally quite uncomfortable. To me, it feels really uncomfortable to feel that they had this reason to look down on me because of the Leo nature that I have, being close to a part in the sky, the south node for them, that is the past. To them, the north node, where you want to go in your life, is in Aquarius. And I have no Aquarius bone in my body. There's no planets there. There's nothing going on there. So I really didn't have that much of a. There wasn't that much of a relationship, and that happens often. And I think that if you are one of those people who are in this kind of a situation, I recommend astrology no end, because you will find it's not enough by itself. I don't think astrology saves your day necessarily, but it's given me insights, and it's given me an external like a structural approach, a method that actually proves or disproves ideas that I have about relationships, about people. And most often it proves that what I felt like is right. My dad doesn't take me seriously. And I have no opinion about that. And that frustrates him, or it used to when we were talking, that I have no opinion. And he will really think that I'm too slow to resist this. And as far as he is concerned, that is actually also the case. But I'm not really. There's a part of him that wants to think of me as nearly retarded in this way. But then again, that's how he looks at most people. So, yeah. I wasn't going to go into this in this much detail. I have recorded a whole lot of useful intel about the Tummo, so let's not go there. I don't like this situation with my dad any more than, anybody in this kind of a situation does. But I have found plenty of reasons why I do not talk to him anymore. So yeah, so there's that. I wanted to also talk about my tarot book. Yes, I have bought this one. This is about the Marseille Tarot. Joe F. Bendorf. I bought this on the internet. And I think I'm going to enjoy reading this cover to cover. I love his writing style. I love that he's so into this stuff. And Marseille Tarot for me is like my home base, more or less. I made a historical tarot deck, a little version of a historical tarot deck during the winter, and I will be comparing that deck and the Marseille that's used in here, and so on and so forth. And it will just be, I've already been able to look up the meaning of one card yesterday. Really pretty pictures as well, it's got plenty of pictures in, and there is not a huge amount of intel about each card. It depends a bit on the set that he's talking about. And I've just started. I've read the introduction, so looking forward to that very much. I want to talk about my Light of Mary Oracle cards, but I will do that separately because I'm already 3/4 of an hour in. Thank you for watching. I'm going to upload this as is, and just so as you know that I'm still alive and I'm still, doing this here occasionally. Thank you, and see you in the next one. Okay? Bye for now.